Vav Amud Aleph will begin Hey Amud Beis, the very last line. We're in the middle of the discussion about Chometz of a Nochri that's in the Yisrael's possession. Does he have to remove it or not? We made a chilek and said if it's Chometz of the Nochri that the Yisrael's Mekabel Achrayas, he has a responsibility to replace it if it's lost or stolen. He has a chiyuv to remove it. He would be over by Yisrael by Mos if he doesn't. If he doesn't have achrayas for it, if he doesn't have to replace it if it's lost or stolen, then he would not be either. So we darshan it from the pasuk Yomi Masechet, and we apply the lecha that's mentioned in the pasuk by Saora Lo Yeroeh, where it says lecha, and we apply that lecha to the Yomi Masechet, and therefore we make this distinction. Ikadamra, another version of what we learned previously, is hanich laman domer davar garm lamaman alav kimoman daim. I understand this limud according to the Mandomer who says davar hagarm lamaman is not kimoman, is not considered money, meaning therefore this chametz doesn't really belong to the Yisrael. He's not the owner of it. He just has a responsibility to replace it if it's lost or stolen. So therefore, it's something that could cause a monetary benefit. It's not his, but he has, its existence gives him a monetary benefit, because so long as it's here, it exists, he doesn't have to replace it. If it's not, he does have to replace it. So it causes a monetary benefit. Now there's a machlokes whether you say davar garam lamoman is kemoman or not. Does it consider it like he owns it? So according to the Mandomer who says davar garam lamoman is lav kemoman dami, you're not considered to own it, then I understand why Hainu Dirshu Lo Yimotze. Now I understand why you need the pasuk to tell me that if it's a Nochri, the Chometz of the Nochri in his possession, even if he's Mekabel Achrayas, it's not considered his ownership. Nevertheless, I need the pasuk to tell me that you have to remove it. You can't have it in your possession. However, Mandomer Kimoman Dami, but according to the Mandomer who says Kimoman Dami, that it is considered to be your ownership, Lo Yimotze Lamali. What do I need? Why do I need this pasuk to tell me that you have to remove it? If it's considered Kimoman, it's like you own it, it's like your chametz. Well, obviously, if it's your chametz that you have to remove it, so why do I need a limud? The Gemara says it's true. Still, I do need it. I might have thought that, nevertheless, but right now it's in existence. And right now, if the Nochri demanded it, you return it, you could just return it. So you have, at the moment, as it stands now, you have no monetary obligation because the chametz is here. So therefore, you might say that since the chametz right now is intact and it's here, the person, the Yisrael, has no ownership over here, and it's not his. You might not have to remove it. So I'd say, La B'shusekoi Kamash Malan. That teaches me that nevertheless you have to remove it. Now the way Rashi and some of the Rishonim learned that, therefore, when Rav Shimon, who's the Mandomer that says Davar Garam L'momen is Kimoman Dami, he would only be saying that it's Kimoman if it's no longer here. But as long as it's intact and it's here, it would not be considered to be moment. According to this Ikata Amri, that's what you would have to say in Rav Shimon. Menu Shaila boy mine merova, they ask Shaila rova behemas arnuna chayevs b'chayra or ein chayevs b'chayra. So we just discussed a case where it's a chametz of a nochri, it's in the Yisrael's possession, he has responsibility, he doesn't, is considered to be an owner. We have the following similar type of Shaila, l'gabi the din of b'char. Now the din of b'char is that the firstborn out of the firstborn behemoth that's born to Yisrael, it's a bechor, he has to give it to a kohen. As a din bechor, he has to give it to a kohen. If it's a partnership with a nochri, if he owns it with a partnership in conjunction with a nochri, there's no din of bechor. What if you have the following scenario? It's a behemoth of arnona. The king imposed a tax, a 10% tax on the flock, that the newborn flock, 10% has to go to the king. So the king, the Nochri, has a financial interest is that considered to be a shutfis with the Nochri, and therefore you're poter from Bechor, or not? So that's a shaila. The behemoths are nuna, the behemoth of the where it has the subject to the tax, chayiv b'chor or ein chayiv b'chor. Is it there's a chayiv for b'chor or not? So kol heicha the matzi masalik lebezuzah, where the yid can pay the equivalent to the king. You can give a monetary equivalent. The king doesn't demand specifically the animal, so the Yisrael can pay whatever it's worth to the king. Lo can be boil on the chayiv. So certainly, then you would say that it's chayiv, because then it's considered to be completely the ownership of the Yisrael. The Nochri doesn't really own the animal. He just has, there's a tax you have to give this equivalent, the monetary equivalent. So he's not considered to be the owner. The Yisrael is considered to be the exclusive owner, and it's chayiv b'chayra. The shaila is heichad loy matzah mesach lebezuzah. The shaila is where you cannot pay him off, where the king can demand the animal itself. Do we consider it to be a shutfis, a partnership, and it's patur from b'chayra or not? Amar lahu, Rav said, patur is patur. You learn in the brisa that there's a chiyuv. Answers hasan matzah mesalakle. Over there, it's talking in the case where you can pay him off. That's when you're chayav. In that case, that's the case of the brisa. But if you can't, if you can demand the animal, then we say in such a case, the Nochri is considered to be a partner, and it's potter. Ikadamre, another version, Omer Rava says, Behemoth Anuna Patur Min Bechor. He says that the behemoth of the tax is potter from Bechor. The Nochri is considered to be a shut of a partner. Va'afal Gav the Matzah Misalakle. And even if the Yisrael can pay him off with a monetary equivalent, it's still potter. He's still considered to be a partner. We consider it to be a partnership, and therefore it's potter. But isas are nuna chayos bechala. But the dough, when you have a similar situation where the monarchy extracts a tax from the new grains, then it's chayos bechala. Now chala has a similar din. A Yisrael has to give rashis obviously sechet. He has to be mafresh chala from the new dough. From the dough, he has to be mafresh a portion and give to the kayan. If it's a partnership with a Nochri, it's potter from chala. But over here we say, as opposed to the case of the Bechor, the Isas Arnuna is Chayav's B'chala, even though it's a case where you pay the tax to the Nochri, and Va'afal Gav Deloy Matzah Misalakle. And even in this case, even if you cannot pay off the Nochri the monetary equivalent, you still say over there it's Chayav, and it's not considered to be a shutfis with the Nochri. My time, what's the difference? Behema Yisla Kola, by Behema, it's known. It's known that the king, the monarchy, has a share in it. Isa less like Kola. But the Isa, it's not well known. Meaning that Midoraisa, the dinim are the same. And Midoraisa, really, they should both be potter. But by the Isa, by the case of Chala, we're geyser, because since not everybody knows about the monarchy's share in it and its percentage in it, therefore they'll think that it belongs exclusively to the Yisrael, and they see that he's not being mafresh chala, and they'll think that you don't have to be mafresh chala. Why should there be a difference between the case of the behema and the case of the chala? I mean, if there's a tax, people know about the tax, so why should there be a chilik? The Rashash explains, because normally what we give it to, the tax that's given to the monarchy is given in a stage where it's grain. You don't wait till the stage where it's made into dough. Therefore, normally the tax would already been given. So people will see that he has the chala and he's not mafresh chala. They won't assume that it's because of the monarchy's interest in it. However, in the case of Bechor, there's no such confusion. So therefore, people are certainly aware that the monarchy has a percentage, and they'll attribute it to the partnership of the Nochri. If a Yisrael comes into the property, if a Nochri comes into the property of the Chatzar of Yisrael, and the Nochri has dough, he has chometz in his hand, ein zakek levar, you don't have to tell the Nochri to leave. If he comes in, he has his chometz, it's not any way the responsibility of the Yisrael, and it's not his. then he does not have to tell him to leave. But if Kido Etzloi, but if the Nachri gave it to the Yisrael for safekeeping, Zaka Glavoyer, then he has to remove it. He has to remove that chometz. Yichad lo bayis, if he designated a house for him, ein zaka klavar shenemar lo yimatzeh, because it says lo yimatzeh. Now there's a basic din in terms of being makabel achrayus. So it says we learned the basic chilik is if the Yisrael has a achrayus, if he has a responsibility, then he would be over bal yirol yimatzeh. He has to remove it. If he has no responsibility, then he doesn't. Now there's a basic din in Shomrim. Then when is it deemed to be that you're makabel responsibility? So the Ran explains the Gemara as follows. If he says, if kidav etzloi, so it's like the din in Bava Metzia that if a person comes and he wants to put something in someone else's possession, and he says, put it in front of me. So he says, put it in front of me, it's as if he's saying that I'm be the shomer, I'm makabel of achrayus. But if he says, put it in front of you. So he lets him keep it here, but he says, put it in front of yourself. Put it down in front of yourself. He's not being makabel achrayus. So we say over here, if it's kira etzloi, it's like he said, put it in front of me. He's makabel achrayus. He has to mevar. If it's yichol bayis, it's like he's saying, okay, put it over there, meaning put it in front of you, not in front of me. You can put it there, but I'm not makabel achrayus. And how do we know this? It says, Shenemar lo yimatzeh. So, in fact, the Gemara, my Koamar, what does this mean? What do you see from lo yimatzeh that, what does this pasuk have to do with what we're discussing over here? So, you say over here, and it says, Yicha lo bayis, ein zakuk levayir, because it says lo yimatzeh. Well, lo yimatzeh is the pasuk that says that from there you learn out you are chayav to be mevayir. So, what does it mean over here? Yicha lo bayis, ein zakuk levayir. So Rapapa Reishakoi, it's not going on the latter case, it's not going on the safe, it's going on the Reish of a Hachikon. If Kiro Etzloi, if it's just if Kiro Etzloi, it's zakuk levayir, because that's the equivalent of being makabel achrayus. Shenemar lo yimatzeh, because it says lo yimatzeh, and if you have achrayus for somebody else's chometz, for a nachri's chometz, you have to be mevar. Rav Ashi Yomi Masechet Pesachim, it's really going on the sefer, and it's going on the case of yichud l'bayis, where he does not have to be mevar. V'halchi kamer yichud l'bayis, if he designated a room for him, means zakuk levayir, he doesn't have to be mevar. Shenemar lo yimatzeh bevatechan, it should not be found, it should not be accessible to you in your houses. And it's not considered his because he did not accept responsibility. The Nachri when the Nachri brings it in, the chometz into the house, it's considered to be that he brought it into his own house. As the Ksais explains that when you say your yichud buys and say, okay, this is for your use, and you can put it over there. So it's like saying, put it in front of you. This house was designated for him. It's ke'ein schiras. It's like renting it. So therefore, it's considered to be the house of the Nachri, not the house of Yisrael, and therefore he has no chiyuv of biur. Frankly, to give more lemeimer the schiras kanya, well, you're treating this as a rental, and therefore you mean to say that schiras kanya, when a person who rents a house, it's considered like he is the owner. We learned in the Mishnah, this is Lagabi Avodah Zarah, the Mishnah Avodah Zarah says that even in a place where they said it's mutter to rent a house to an Ovid Kechavim, but loyla beis dira amro, but not for his personal dwelling, because he'll bring into the house the Avodah Zarah, and therefore he'll bring into your house the Avodah Zarah. So don't you see that even though you rented it to him, but it's not considered his house, it's considered your house, and therefore bringing the Avodah Zarah into the house is considered bringing Avodah Zarah into your house. Now, if you tell me the Schiras is Kaina, Ki Kamayl, based on Nafshi Kamayl. If Schiras is Kanya, therefore the Nachri who rented it should be considered like the Nachri's house, not the Yisrael. So don't you see over here that Schiras is like Kanya? Mora says, yes, that's true. So if Schiros is not Kanya, why is it mutter when you say Yichel Bayis? Why is it Ein Zocher Levar? Because Shiny Hacha, the Afkim Rahman B'Loshon Lo Yimatze. Because over here, the Torah says Lo Yimatze. It should not be available to you. Misha Matze B'Yadcha. Now, it's only the Isser if it's available to you, if it's in your hand. Which excludes this case that even though you're the owner of the house, just because Yichud Loy Bayis doesn't mean you're not the owner. Yes, you are the owner. However, since you designated and you left it for him, designated for his use, it's not Matzah B'Yadcha, so therefore you do not have to be Mavayer. If a person finds chametz in his house on Yontiv, so what does he do? He shouldn't leave it there exposed because a person might come to eat it. He should cover it with a kli. And then at the first available opportunity, he should be mevayer. If this chametz belongs to hektish, ain't it tzarach? He doesn't have to cover it. My time mivdel b'dilimine, because people are accustomed during the whole year to separate themselves from hektish. They know they can't use hektish, but by chametz, as Taisus and Beis Hamad Aleph explains, that chametz is different, and the reason we have the special by chametz, bedikas chametz, etc., is because the whole year a person eats chametz. He's not accustomed not to eat it. Hektish, a person knows the whole year, he knows he's not allowed to have anha and partake from hektish, so he keeps away from it. But chametz, he doesn't know that. So over here, by chametz, you have to cover it. By hektish, a person's accustomed not to using the hektish. We're not worried, he doesn't have to cover it. If the chametz that he found is the chametz of a nochri, now over here, this is opposed to the case that we talked before, is we're not talking where he found the chometz on Pesach. Over here, what we're talking about over here, if it's the chometz of a nochri, where the yid did not accept responsibility, he was not makabel achrayis for it. So we're talking where the nochri had the permission to put it there, but the Yisrael is not makabel achrayis, where we said before there's no bal yirah, bal yamatzeh. So in such a case, but you still have the problem, you still have the issue, if he sees the chametz lying around, he might inadvertently come to eat it. So over here, he has to make a mechitza to separate himself from the chametz for a heker so that he doesn't come to eat it. And if it's a hektish, ain't it tzarach? He doesn't have to. My taima, like we said before, mivdol b'dili in sheminei, because a person he's accustomed to separate himself from the hektish. Now, what's the difference in this case when we say make a machitza, as opposed to the previous case when we say you found it on Pesach, they're covered with a kli? So the chiluk is, Rashi explains, because in the previous case it's on Yontiv. You found it on Yontiv. You can't make a machitza. It's also to make a machitza on Yontiv. So that's number one. Number two is, in the previous case, when you found it on Yontif, you'll burn it right after Yontif. But over here, you can't burn it. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Nachman. He has permission to put it there. And we're talking where he had permission, and this is from before Yontif. So you were allowed to put up a mechitza. You put a mechitza. Now, since the chametz is going to be there for 8 days, for 7 days, or for 8 days, and therefore we say it's not enough to even cover it with a kli, because the kli might inadvertently be removed. In the previous case, you'll burn it right after Yontiv. Over here, it's there for the entire Pesach. You have to use a mechitza. If a person is leaving his home, so he's leaving his home before Pesach, so he's not there at the time of bedikas chometz or bir chometz. He's not there, which we'll define a little later, as 30 days before Pesach. So, if he leaves more than 30 days, if he's before 30 days before Pesach, he doesn't have to do a beer. But if he does it within 30 days, then it's chal on him the chayvas biur, so he has to remove it. Amar Abai says, that we said that within 30 days he does have to be mevayer, lo yamen el shadai talachser. That's only if his intent is to return by Pesach. I mean, he's going to be home by Pesach. So therefore, if it's within 30 days of Pesach and he's going to return for Pesach, he has to be mevayer. But even if it's within 30 days, but if he's not going to be home for Pesach, he does not have to remove it. Amalei Rava says, no, if he's going to be home for Pesach, even if it's from the beginning of the year, what's the difference? Even though he doesn't yet have a chayvus biur, but if he returns, he's returning for Pesach, then he'll have chametz in his rishus. So we would have to remove it anyway. That we said if it's more than 30 days before Pesach, he does not have to remove it. It's opposite. That's only if he does not want to return. He's not going to return. So therefore, right now, it's more than 30 days before Pesach, he doesn't have a chayvus biur. It's not chal on him yet, a chayvus biur. And he's not going to be home for Pesach, so the chometz is not accessible to him. So he's not going to be over Bal Yirah by a matzah because it's not accessible to him because he's not here. So it's like it's buried underground. But if he is going to return, well, then the chometz will be accessible to him on Pesach. Even if it's from the beginning of the year, he'd have to remove it because he can't return home and have Pesach there. He'll be over. I can't return home rather and have chometz there on Pesach because he'll be over, so he has to remove it. And Rava follows his own reasoning. If a person makes his house a storehouse, meaning he has chometz and he piles on top of the chometz, he piles on it fruits, peiros, if this is done more than 30 days, he doesn't have to remove the chometz. Because right now, it's more than 30 days, there's no chayvus biur on it. And by the time Pesach comes, it's already going to be considered a mavur, it's buried. But if it's Tzech Shleishim Yaim, then he does have to remove the chometz, because right now, it's already chal on him a chayvus biur. But v'kainim shleishim yom nami, and even more than 30 days, that we say he does not have to be mevayer, lo yamen elashein daita lefnais. That's only if he doesn't want to clear out his house on Pesach. Meaning, so when Pesach comes, the chometz will still be buried, it'll be tomun, it will not be accessible. Aval daita lefnais, but if his intent is to remove it, clear out his house, and clear out by Pesach, the chometz will be accessible. Even if it's more than 30 days, he will still have to be mevar, because if his intent is to clear out the produce, and it comes Pesach, and then the chometz will be exposed and will be accessible, then it'll be over. So it makes no difference. Meaning, according to Rava, if it's on Pesach and he'll have chometz that's accessible in his rishus, it doesn't matter if he's home or not. He has to ensure that he doesn't have chometz on his house on Pesach. So even though right now it's more than 30 days, and even if he's going to leave in the interim, or even if in the interim the chometz is not accessible, but if the chometz is accessible on Pesach, he has to ensure that he doesn't have chometz which is accessible to him in his house if he's going to be there on Pesach.